I first heard about Time Hollow from Dungeon Chill's video on Shadow of Destiny. He mentioned that it was written and directed by Junko Kawano, who's most famous for her work on the Suikoden series, as well as being the character designer for the upcoming Eiyuden Chronicles. Time Hollow was released as a spiritual successor to the PS2's Shadow of Destiny. It follows a sophomore in high school who tries to solve the mysterious disappearance of his parents after he receives a pen that allows him to open holes to the past. It's an interesting concept, and even though it definitely has problems with its plot, it's pretty cute and lacks a lot of coverage on YouTube. The game starts with our protagonist, Ethan Kairos, who just got scratched up by his cat's socks after he tried to bathe him. By the way, please don't do that to your cat unless they get motor oil on them, because they self-clean and an actual bath just stresses them out. Ethan's uncle Derek stops by to ask for money, but after Ethan's dad tells him no a bit too firmly, Derek leaves in a huff, muttering some slightly veiled threats. After dinner, Ethan tries to broach the topic of a present for his birthday tomorrow, but his mom and dad are too busy talking about cryptic stuff. Ethan goes to his room after telling his mom her cooking sucks and goes to bed. Ethan wakes up. He doesn't have a scratch from socks. Ignore that wormhole. His blanket is different. After we've poked around in his room a little, Ethan will notice a pen attached to his cat Socks's collar. Now that he has the pen, we're finally able to look at the hole, and when Ethan touches the pen to the hole, it closes and Ethan's mind fills with new memories. In this reality, Ethan lives with his uncle Derek, and his parents went missing 12 years ago. Ethan goes to school and meets up with Ashley and her friend Emily. Ashley is his friend's sister, and although Ethan doesn't know Emily, she seems to have a crush on him. The two got him an antique clock for his birthday, weird, and run off as soon as Ethan's friends come along. This is Vin, who has almost no plot importance, Morris, a high-strung straight-A student who's always serious, and Ben, who we will talk about in Chapter 3. Everyone wishes him a happy birthday, and Ethan just kind of out of the blue is like, guys, why am I an orphan? For whatever reason, no one else seems to remember Ethan's parents, and everyone just says that they went missing 12 years ago. With no further clues, Ethan goes home and notices a piece of paper stuck in Socks's collar. It says that if Ethan has the place, time, and a general description of an event, he can use the hollow pen, the thing we found in Socks's collar earlier, to open a hole to the past. It also tells him he can learn the rest at the school's dumpster 7 hours before. Ethan sneaks out and heads to the school dumpster where the hollow pen starts to glow, so he draws a circle in the air. Come on, Ethan, come on. Inside the box is a note that explains that time freezes when a hole is opened, and for it to resume, the hole has to be closed. The note ends with Ethan's dad asking him to save his parents, as well as the watch that Ethan had wanted for his birthday. With the prologue setting up the plot, I'll talk about gameplay before we get into story spoilers. The basic gameplay loop is that something changes in time, Ethan gains a memory of these changes, and then he has to go explore town and talk to people to solve these discrepancies in time. When opening a hole, you have to have enough energy. I don't know what actually happens if you run out of energy, but I assume it's either a game over or Ethan's just like, I don't know, man, I can't time travel right now. You can refill the hollow pen by walking around and occasionally finding Socks, who's playing with a little ball of energy called a cron. Also, pro tip, at the end of a chapter, the hollow pen's maximum energy is shortened by 1 plus the amount of energy missing. So you always want to end the chapter with a full bar of energy. If you're interested in playing the game, I definitely recommend it, especially for lovers of the visual novel genre, but I'd also suggest you dip out now because it's spoiler time. The chapter begins with Ashley and Emily looking for Ashley's phone. Vin shows up and teases his sister because the pig charm on it looks like a dog or something. Anyway, all of a sudden, reality shifts and Ethan has flashbacks of Emily and Ashley fighting, as well as a strange new girl in his class that he's never seen before. We learn that in this timeline, Ashley's been missing for 2 days, so Ethan decides to help with the search. He meets up with Emily and learns that the two had gotten into a fight because Ashley misplaced the money for Ethan's birthday present. Emily got mad and ran off, and that's when Ashley went missing. She also tells us the place and time that this happened, meaning that if we can find the money, we can send it through a hole to prevent the fight. While back at school, there's a little note from someone named Corey that says they found an envelope. We call up the number, and apparently it was posted by the new girl in Ethan's class. She found that envelope with money in it and won't give it to us unless we can prove that we're friends with Ashley. So we have to ask Vin, who, by the way, is mourning the death of his sister, for a picture of Ethan and Ashley. With this as proof, she gives us the envelope, and Ethan sends it through a hole, resulting in everything going back to normal. Okay, also, I forgot to mention that Ashley and Emily recovered the money too late, and so they weren't able to go shopping for Ethan's, special clock gift or whatever, and they had to just settle for a card. So there's that. We didn't learn anything in this chapter about what's going on with Ethan's parents, but maybe the next chapter we'll have more info. Ethan and the boys are hanging out at a cafe called Kronos, very on the nose, where we learn that Ben has a crush on the waitress Olivia. Dude, ew, I'm not even gonna read that. Olivia tells the boys about how a fridge fell off a moving truck and almost killed her. Time shifts. Oh, okay, Olivia's dead. Ethan has a memory of Ashley and Emily hanging out by the place the bikes are parked at, so after confirming the time, he pokes around in the past and finds that the brakes have been cut. Ethan grabs the key from her bike lock so she won't be able to use it. It sucks that she'll have to walk home, but at least she won't be dead. Time updates again, and Olivia's alright, but the story she tells the boys is a little different. This time the fridge fell from the truck and killed a dog that was being walked by some kid. Ethan is understandably shaken by this because he feels responsible, but the other boys are especially agitated, particularly Ben. We'll learn about why a bit later. Anyway, we explore a little, find the time this would occur, and secure the rope holding the fridge so that no one's hurt. The chapter ends with Ben being totally heartbroken after everyone learns that Olivia is getting a ride from her boyfriend since she lost her bike's lock key. A few days have passed since last chapter, and Ethan's a bit stressed that he hasn't made any progress in solving his parents' disappearance. At the library, Ethan confides a bit in Morris, but they get interrupted by a call from Ben. Now, dear viewer, I want you to take a singular guess as to what you think happened. Did you guess that Ben fucking murdered somebody? Because that's what happened. So we head to Kronos and see Vin wrestling Ben, a blood spatter, and Jacob, the little boy from the last chapter, curled up in a ball. After some probing, we learned what happened here. Basically, Ben left Kronos, saw Jacob walking his dog, started beating the shit out of the dog, and when Aaron came out and was like, hey, don't beat that dog, he fucking murdered him. Okay, so we look around and find some bloody wire cutters, which I guess is the murder weapon and what was used to cut Olivia's brakes before. We travel back in time, take the wire cutters, but this time the confrontation happens again, and Ben ends up in the hospital. Now, personally, I would keep this reality because, I don't know, man, I feel like Ben kind of had it coming. Ethan, however, doesn't want his friend to get his ass whooped, so he explains things to Morris, who doesn't remember the discussion from before because this is a new timeline. Morris gives us a bit of backstory. See, the kids used to have a treehouse hideout, and they would take turns caring for this stray dog named Shiloh. One day, a typhoon came, and it was Ben's turn to take care of Shiloh. But this dumb shit left the dog tied up at the treehouse, and it died. So now, Ben has trauma, and we need to save Shiloh so that he doesn't randomly beat dogs anymore. We head to where the hideout used to be. Now it's an antique shop. We go in, and this fucking old man is talking to us like, oh, you go to this high school. I used to go there. Oh, some of your classmates were in here buying an antique clock. And we're like, dude, I'm just trying to change the flow of history. We ask if we can go in the back room to poke around a little when really we just need to get closer to where the hideout used to be. And this guy wants to exchange contact info, whatever, man. So we open a hole, free Shiloh, and in the modern day, Ben is not a putrid little rat. And also, Morris actually dropped out of high school to become a full-time dog trainer and is much happier this way as opposed to being a stressed out student. All right, I know that we're halfway done with the game, but now we are finally starting to get past the filler and into the actual story. Ethan decides to ask Derek about his parents' disappearance, and apparently they investigated a traffic incident that involved Irving, the antique guy, and his mother, who actually died in the accident. So upon hearing this, it kind of clicks for Ethan, and he's like, wait a minute. Irving made a comment about Ashley and Emily shopping for an antique clock, but he couldn't possibly have that memory because in this timeline, Ashley and Emily never went shopping for it. Ethan gives Derek Irving's contact info, and while Derek's out, Ethan investigates the study that is normally always locked, but this time Derek forgot to lock it. Firstly, Derek apparently found Ashley's phone, but more importantly, Ethan finds a note that says that using the hollow pen makes you age faster. And he also finds a newspaper scrap about that bus incident involving Irving and his mother. Okay, editor Isaac here. I actually made a mistake here. We didn't find the newspaper scrap in the book. We found where it was in the book, but Derek had taken it with him. So we actually find it at the library, but it doesn't matter. And he finds a high school yearbook that has Derek, who's aged pretty normally, Irving, who was in the same class as him, but has aged a ton, and buckle up for this, Corey, who hasn't aged a day. All right, so now we have a date for it. So Ethan heads to the site of the accident and opens a hole to try to save Irving's mom. Much to his surprise, Irving's mother, Mary, also has a hollow pen. So she's able to move around when time's frozen as well. She moves to safety. Ethan closes the hole. Time resumes again, but the flashbacks remain the same. Ethan tries it again. Still, nothing changes. She still dies in that accident. Ethan, feeling real yucky after using the hollow pen too much, and goes to bed. The next day, Corey confronts Ethan and is like, are you killing Mary? We're not. So the two of them discuss how they can keep her alive. Corey suggests pulling Mary onto Ethan's side of the hole, but also mentions that doing so would, quote, leave her out of the flow of time, meaning that she wouldn't age and she would basically just vanish from the past. Corey tells us that long ago she was pulled through a hole, but before she can tell us who did it, the timeline changes. In this reality, Ethan lives alone, and Derek owned Kronos, the cafe, and died 2 years after selling it. All right, we head to the cafe and ask this timeline's owner about Derek. She tells us that the cafe did really poorly on its opening day, and Derek got involved with loan sharks because of the debt. Ironically, it wasn't the loan sharks that killed him. Instead, he paid them back fully, gave up on running the cafe, became an investigative journalist, and died while hunting for clues. Ethan looks into Derek's murder, and the newspaper mentions that a note was left at the scene of the crime. With the date in place, Ethan heads to the site, opens a hole, grabs the note, and reads it. Guess what it is? It's the contact information we had given to Irving. So basically what's going on is Irving has inherited Mary's hollow pen and is trying to avenge his mother because he thinks that Ethan is somehow involved with her death. So, oh my god, the solution is so stupid. To keep Derek from ever becoming an investigative journalist, we ask around for what makes a good cafe, and people are like, it needs a good atmosphere, free refills, Capway maids. So we write all this down on like a little piece of note paper, and we leave it on the counter during opening night. The timeline updates, and that note that we left was so good that the cafe is still open and Derek still owns it. Okay, actually, Derek thought that the note was a bit of encouragement from his brother, Ethan's dad, and it was so meaningful to him that he decided not to give up, and I think that's actually really cute. The chapter ends with Ethan receiving a message from Irving telling him to meet at the site of the bus accident at 6 a.m. tomorrow. We show up to the site of the accident, and Irving reveals his motive. Whenever he opens a hole to save his mother, it doesn't work for him either. So he assumes it's Ethan's doing because apparently Ethan's father sent a letter to Mary telling her to get on the bus. And then he pulls a fucking knife on Ethan and tries to stab us. Derek arrives, protects and saves us. Also, Corey's here. Doesn't matter though, because Irving uses his hollow pen to open a hole and jumps on through it. Reality changes. Somehow we're not dead. Ethan wakes up in his room. Corey calls him and asks to meet where the antique shop used to be. We'll learn why it's gone later, but for now, we meet up with Corey and she tells us her sad backstory. Basically, she got pushed off a roof by someone, and when she came to, she was in a classroom 3 days later. Ethan's dad had pulled her through a hole to save her, so that's nice. Unfortunately, he also promised to get things back to how it was, but then he vanished, and Corey's like, well, now I'm just immortal, waddling around doing nothing. At that moment, though, she also notices that there's a burn scar on Ethan's hand, and we're like, we better see what Irving did to this timeline. We investigate a little, and in this timeline, Ethan's friends are all missing, and Irving has, okay, I don't know why he did this, but he has stolen Ethan's homeroom teacher's identity, and now he goes by Jack. Totally unnecessary. Ethan runs into Ashley and is like, hey, where's Vin? And she's like, he died. So we go to the library, Google, treehouse fire or whatever, and we learn that Ethan's 3 friends had died in a fire at the old hideout. We go back in time, prevent the fire, but when time re-updates, Jack confronts us and is like, I didn't start the fire. It was Irving. Allow me to explain. If you go back in time in this game, you will exist until the other you catches up with the time traveler. So if someone goes back in time at the age of 30 to when they are a baby, they will exist until that baby turns 30, in which case the time traveler will cease to exist. I don't understand the logic behind as to like why that is, but we'll just roll with it. I guess that means that the Irving from our timeline set fire to the treehouse, just laid low, and then he vanished into Thanos dust. After the exposition, Jack rapid fire starts making changes to the past. First, by having Ben kill Aaron because he makes it so Shiloh was never rescued. Snaps Morris's neck while he's studying after school, okay. And brutally beats Ashley and Emily to death? Holy shit. Okay, first, we try to save Ashley and Emily by leaving a note for Ashley being like, don't go to Kronos, it's dangerous. By the way, that's where they got murdered. But this only results in time updating, and the blame is put on Ethan because for whatever reason, everyone's like, that's a note of him luring her to Kronos, even though it says the exact opposite. I guess that since Ashley didn't have her phone, she went to Kronos anyway to be like, hey, Emily, we need to leave because of this note. But while she was alone, that's when she got killed. So now cops are swarming the place, and if we go to most areas, we get chased off by the police. If we go to the school, we find Corey, and Ethan confides in her, and he's feeling really defeated until Corey gives him a pep talk, and then this awesome music kicks in, and then he's like, wait, that's right, Ashley's phone is in Derek's office. So the two go to Ethan's house, Corey lures the cops away, Ethan goes inside, grabs the phone, goes back to school, leaves the phone in Ashley's locker, and writes a note to her being like, hey, bake me some homemade cookies, kissy face. Okay, now we have to save Morris and Ben. We literally have already done this. We just go back, save Shiloh, everything's fine. Ben doesn't kill Aaron. Morris isn't at school because he's a high school dropout, so he doesn't get his neck snapped. Everything's back to normal until Irving drops a letter off that lures Derek to the site of an explosion. We researched the explosion a bit and learned that it took place 12 years ago at the Eterna Grill. We have the location, we have the time. We send Corey in through the hole to move Derek out of the way to safety. Okay, what, you didn't have to move him that far away. Also, what is that, a fucking nuke? She comes back through the hole, time updates, and this time, one of the flashbacks shows Ethan's parents in the explosion for some reason. I don't know why, but there they are. We get ready to open the hole and save Ethan's parents finally, but Irving shows up, stabs Ethan in the leg. But then, out of nowhere, Derek shows up because Corey, in the past, slipped him a note telling him to come back after 12 years. And I guess he just remembered that apparently. Okay. Derek holds Irving back while Ethan opens a hole, and finally, we rescue his parents. When time resumes, Irving escapes Derek's hold and lunges to kill Ethan, but Corey dives in front, takes the knife, and phases out of existence, dying. Irving runs away, we limp after him, and before he's able to open a hole and escape again, we tackle him off a cliff. Ethan, for some reason, has a change of heart, tries to save Irving, but his glove slips off and he falls to his death. We're in the final chapter. Some time has passed, Ethan has recovered from his wounds, and we are back at the Kairos house. We need a plan of action, but before that, we ask Ethan's dad why he pulled Corey through a hole in the first place. Apparently, in the timeline where she falls to her death, Derek... Okay, guys, listen. I don't want to instantly get my little ass sniped by YouTube Incorporated, so we're going to use an alternate term. Derek Roblox oofs himself if Corey dies. We get the date of the event, go to the school, and pull Corey through a hole again. The Corey that's been helping Ethan the whole time is gone. She does not exist anymore. This Corey we just pulled through does not know us. She's like, who are you? I just almost fell off a roof. We calm her down, we bring her home, and we explain everything that's going on. Corey is not able to remember who pushed her, but she managed to get a good scratching in before she fell. And if you recall, when Irving's glove slipped off, he had a pretty bad scar on his hand. We ask if he has like any kind of a motive for killing her, and Corey's like, I don't know, one time we cleaned class up together and then he started stalking me because I look like his mother. All right, Oedipus. So then someone points out, how does he know what his mother looks like if she died in a bus accident? Which, I mean, there could be pictures, but okay, we'll keep rolling with that logic. Corey says, actually, no, Mary did not die. She was literally, I just saw her like a few days prior. This is the real breakthrough moment of the game, and it's a little confusing, so stay with me. This Corey that we just snagged comes from the original timeline, where nothing changes. In that timeline, Mary is alive. So that means that someone is tampering with time, and that is resulting in her death. But we have no idea who it could possibly be. Corey and Derek, they kind of have a thing in the past. So we have Corey write a note to Mary, and we send it through a wormhole to get Derek to give it to Mary. We get the note to Mary, and we are able to meet up at a certain point in time at a certain location. It's at like a bus stop, whatever. Ethan opens a wormhole, and he's talking to Mary, and he's like, dude, we don't know what to do about your son. He keeps on killing this girl. And get this, Mary's like, is it Corey? Because I have been trying to stop him from killing Corey for like ever. And she's like, you know what? I'm so sick of this. I'm just going to go back in time and Roblox oof myself and him. Ethan tries to be like, no, you can't do that. Because then he comes after us and she's like, I'm not even going to listen to you. I'm going to send a letter to my past self being like, get on this bus. And also for some reason, she's like, I'm going to have it be from your dad. Like, why do you have to implicate us in this? Also, you could just send yourself a letter being like, hey me, take a morning after pill because that baby, psycho, stalker, murderer. Either way, we can't convince her, so we just head home, and as a group, we come up with an ingenious plan. We're like, okay, what if we send Derek through the hole, he catches Corey midair, and then they fall 2 stories to the ground. Let's see what happens. So we do that, and it works, and that's it. Everything's great. Ethan's parents are alive. Derek and Corey, they got married, had a daughter. Why are you making that face, dude? You look like a fucking Mitama from Shin Megami Tensei. Also, Irving and his mom moved far away after Roofgate. We waddle around the town. You can talk to everyone, all the different characters, and Ethan agrees to make some summer plans with Ashley, Emily, and a friend that they made. In order to assure that his past self gets all this right, he puts the watch that he got for his birthday along with the note from the beginning of the game through a hole so that his past self will find it at the garbage dump. And finally, to give himself the hollow pen, he doesn't just throw it through a wormhole. He attaches it to Socks's collar and sends his beloved pet cat through a hole, dooming it to cease to exist after some time has passed. Why would you do that? After the credits roll, we finally see this friend of Ashley and Emily, and it is a girl who looks an awful lot like Corey and is probably Ethan's cousin. And yes, I do believe that Ethan absolutely goes Sweet Home Alabama on that ass because it is heavily implied that he has a crush on Corey as well. And that is Time Hollow. It's an interesting little game that I really enjoyed. It has a lot more replayability than other games in the genre. In A New Game Plus, there are slightly different ways that you can solve some of the puzzles, and there's even a super top secret ending that you can get. Unfortunately, as with a lot of time-traveling media, there are some major plot holes that can really detract from the overall story. Either way, this is an interesting game that I really liked, and anyone who's played it absolutely loves it.